Before we get into today's video, I wanted to talk about one of the best ways to save money on Evony packs today. We all know that buying packs is the best way to turbocharge your growth, and it's always better to save money while getting the same rewards. From August 6th to September 3rd, US customers can get 20% back on all Evony purchases made through the Amazon App Store. To take advantage of this awesome deal, follow 3 simple steps. Number 1, install the Amazon App Store on your Android device or BlueStacks emulator. Number 2, download Evony through the Amazon App Store. And number 3, purchase packages in Evony to get 20% back in Amazon coins. I have put a link to this website in the description of the video. This website includes QR codes to download and buy Amazon coins and an in-depth set of instructions on how to get Amazon App Store set up. Make sure you take advantage of this amazing deal while it lasts. Hello everyone, welcome back to Optimize Evony. Today I wanted to talk about a very interesting topic. One of the harder things to do in Evony, which is turn into a T1 trap or at least an account that has a T1 wall, but not a lot of high tier troops, so that they go positive in solos and rallies if they have the right reinforcements and stuff like that. How do you turn that into a bigger keep? And when is the time to that into a bigger keep? So first of all, this is not an easy transition. This is I would equate this to, you kind of have to go through like a puberty stage where, like, you're not going to be as good on defense. You're not going to be as good on attacking. You're going to be like giving up more points. But hopefully, if you have a good alliance, they can kind of help you through that. So where are you kind of starting out from? When you're starting out from this in this scenario, you have, very few layers. You don't have what I have here right now. You have a strong T1 wall, hopefully around 1 billion. You might have some T2s, T3s, and so on here, but you don't have a lot of high tier troops. So what is the right thing to do? Do you just go and start building high tier troops? Uh, I'm assuming you might have a couple marches that you can ghost and unghost and stuff like that, to be able to join rallies and stuff like that. Unless you're a true T1 trap, and you don't want to be ghosting, because those are just points that you can lose when you get caught. Uh, but in that it aside from that case, like, you need to the first thing that you're going to want to do is build a couple PvP marches. So maybe a one or two archer marches. Archer marches are probably the least vulnerable to giving up a lot of points. Then maybe a ground march for reinforcing and attacking, and then third, a mount march. I would say siege is really tricky. As a T1 trap or a T1 build, it's really tough to build a lot of siege or to have like those attacking marches. You should still have your layers to protect your archers and stuff, but I wouldn't build a whole lot of siege. I would say when you're starting to build up, you can then maybe build like a T11 march, and start buffing up the layers a little bit, but not too much. However, you want to make sure that you're ready for this, right? And how do you actually determine whether you're ready to expand your keep into more than just a T1 trap, more than just a T1 wall account? And to be clear, just because you're moving past a T1 trap or T1 wall account doesn't mean that you should, do anything to your refines. Your refines should all still stay those flat refines. Those are going to help a lot, particularly in this interim phase where you're not going to have a lot of high tier troops, but you're going to have enough where they're going to start to lose you some points when you get soloed and rallied. But in general, keep those flat refines. Those you've built a billion T1 cav ground, whatever you decided to build. You've built that amount. So let them help you. Let them tank those rallies. Let them attack for you. Don't be afraid of, if you have a T1 mount wall, don't be afraid of having flat mount refines. They do help. I plan an account that is more of a full T1 build, but it does have some high tier troops, mostly because it was a a resurrected account from before that. The only troops that it was able to heal and stuff like that were the high tier troops, and so unfortunately it doesn't lend itself super great to being like an SVS trap unless you ghost those troops. But you know what does the primary killing in the keep is those T1s. I have a billion T1s on that account, and yes, I have a couple million high tier troops, but the high tier troops really don't get that many kills. It's these T1 mounts that are still getting the kills. Granted, as you scale up, that doesn't always happen. Those were on solos. On rallies, it's a little bit less apparent, but you still want to keep those T1s and those flats. The other thing that you want to make sure is, one, you're going positive with your current build, right? You don't want to build more troops when you're already not being able to go positive with almost a strictly T1 build. In that case, like, you really need to work on those refines and work on the debuffs before you feel confident in advancing. So yeah, you want to make sure that you're really targeting those range attack, siege attack, mount attack, siege HP, those kind of critical debuffs, and make sure that those are at a level where you are not going to just bleed points when you build more troops. I know I had a video earlier saying don't build a lot more troops. This is exactly the opposite. This is saying when you should build those troops, and that's a tough thing to actually measure. If you are going super positive on things, expect to not go positive while you're going through this transition. But if you have solid debuffs and buffs in place, you'll eventually grow into it. The other thing that I would say, one of the reasons why you would want to grow your troops is if you're on a rally team and you have people that are going to be able to reinforce you to prevent you from dying or giving up a ton of points. Uh, but you want to contribute more to those rallies. You have good attacking buffs and stuff like that, but you just don't have the troops to be able to keep supporting that, and you don't want to keep healing, spending thousands of days healing marches every single battlefield. So those are all good reasons of when to actually build it. I will say, when you're in this transition, I would almost exclusively say you should have one of the bigger players in your alliance reinforcing you for SVS and for battlefields, because you are gonna start not having the same defense that you expect. Your buffs aren't changing. Nothing like that is changing. You're just building more troops, more high level troops that are more vulnerable to attack. And so, yeah, then at that point, how do you actually scale up? So it really does depend a little bit on what you're getting attacked with. But I would say your first course of troops that you should build is build build archers, build some archers at least, build enough to rally with, and then follow that up with ground uh, to protect against archer rallies. That is typically the primary opening rally against most like kind of mid-tier accounts. Unless you're facing really big alliances, they might try and cav or ground you first, and those rallies hurt though. That you're not going to get past that regardless unless you have a lot of good reigns. So I would say go archer and ground first, and then siege and calves are the more vulnerable troop type typically. And so I would start building your calves, but start building it kind of a little bit from the bottom up, because if you particularly if you're a T1 cav trap or a T1 cav wall, those flats will benefit up to a certain point as you're kind of scaling up. But then once you get to your 12s, 13s, 14s, you're going to want to have really solid HP buffs for both mount and for siege. For siege, then you want to have a decent amount of T13s, while not giving up too much in terms of siege rallies. So uh, siege is a really tough thing to defend against if you don't have really solid buffs and debuffs, and really becomes more of a numbers game. Uh, there are really strong buffs in this game, and so you will fairly often, particularly if you're a smaller player, you will get siege soloed, and you might lose a billion power. You might lose a 1.5 or even 2 billion power against some of the really strong players. That's going to be kind of unavoidable because siege is such a numbers game. So unless you have siege reigns can protect you against that. But unless you have siege reigns, until you have enough siege to withstand a solo, it's always going to go pretty poorly against some of these high buffs. So that would be one of the last ones that I would build. I would build some lower siege in terms of like T13s, some T9s, but then really focus the primary amount of your siege on T13s, because it has the same range as T14s and T15s. So that's kind of the rationale there. It gives up less points, but it still is able to attack at that same range. But yeah, I really this is a tough question. It is really hard to get through this kind of transition, but if you plan it out, if you have make sure you have the buffs, the debuffs, the flats and everything in place before you make this transition, and you have the support of your team, you will be able to make this a strong transition. I will say, make sure that you're not screwing over your team by doing this. If you guys are just barely, winning battlefields, or if you're, consistently losing battlefields, building more troops, going through this transition, unless you're losing battlefields because you just don't have troops to rally, eh, that's typically not the case. You're typically losing it on defenses. And so coming from a T1 trap, you're purpose built to not give up a lot of points and to actually, gain points when you get attacked from solos and from, small rallies. If you get attacked without reinforcements, that can be pretty bad. But yeah, just make sure that you're not kind of screwing over your team by building a bunch of troops that are going to cause you to go negative when you're playing Battlefield. But yeah, I hope this was helpful for some of you guys. I know this is a common question that is asked, particularly because for lower coiners and free-to-play players, the T1 trap and T1 build is by far the most effective form of defense that you can have. And so really you're taking that and you're just scaling it up to the level that your buffs will support. But yeah, thanks for watching. As always, please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.